Welcome to the Veterans Cafe podcast, where we talk about issues surrounding veterans and soldiers, as well as current events in the world.
Sometimes we interview guests and organizations, but more than anything, we are here for you.
Welcome to the Veterans Cafe podcast, episode 30.
Wow.
Finally.
Wow.
I'm Wes.
I'm Tracy. Yeah, so we've been a little bit busy. I was in Germany for about 3 weeks. Before that, though, what we talked about before on the last episode was my upcoming trip to Invictus, which was amazing. I was there for 4 or 5 days. I had a terrible cold and flu. Like I could barely function. But it was so much fun to be there, and it was very inspiring. And, the Invictus Games, like we talked about before, were created by Prince Harry, and I got to meet him briefly, and I got a few photographs of him, and I ended up in like this private area where he wasn't supposed to be, but with, the approval of security, and so much fun. I mean, and the word Invictus stands for unconquered. So as a photographer looking through my lens pretty much the entire time, it was amazing to see so many athletes that are adaptive, and, a lot of them fight, for duty, and it was just amazing, inspiring. I loved every minute of it.
But of course, ultimately, you failed your mission in getting Morgan Freeman to record his voice on your phone.
I know. I don't know. It was like the weirdest thing. Like everywhere I went, like if I walked into a room or like an area or what have you, like everywhere I went, I would discover that he had just left. And it was the same for Prince Harry. I tried so hard to get a photo of Prince Harry early on. I think it took me like a good 3 solid days. And one of my Facebook statuses was like, "Oh my God, I finally shot Prince Harry." Like an exclamation points, but everyone was like, "Please word that a little bit differently."
Yes, which I immediately started receiving Secret Service phone calls. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Oh, it was so awesome. It was an amazing experience. One of my favorite moments, actually, that I got to capture, I was standing next to a photographer from Getty Images. We were talking and chatting about things or what have you, and then we discovered a secret that if you saw Chris, his personal photographer, walk out of a room or a section, then you realize that Prince Harry was behind him, shortly after. But of course, I found that secret out too late, so I didn't get that many images of him. But one of the images that we captured together, of course, he did a better job because he had a better lens, was when Elizabeth Marks gave her medal back to him. And she did that because, she was very grateful of the people that helped her, through her various injuries. And she wanted to have that medal go back to them. So it was pretty amazing to see.
What did she do? What did she compete in?
Swimming. She's an impressive lady. She had some serious hip injuries in Iraq. And so she kept trying different avenues to get herself back in shape. And, she lost a leg. And because of her hip injuries, the one thing that she could do well was swim. And she struggled a lot from what I've read as far as, getting back to being fit for duty. And one of the ways she was able to do it was swimming. And ultimately now she swims for the Army. So she's really good and she's really fast. But she's had so many injuries that when she's in the water, she gets disoriented because of lack of oxygen and things like that. So the fact that someone like this, who has struggled so much personally, received a gold medal and wanted to instantly give it back, to thank people, was just mind-blowing to me.
And so, of course, immediately after the Invictus Games, you left me here by myself and traveled to Europe.
I sure did. It was so awesome. There was 4 of us who got to go, and I'm still so grateful and excited that I got to go. Though I discovered that 3 weeks is a long time. Okay, even though it was amazing, I was ready to come back home. But we started in Germany. We covered a march. It was called March to International of Dykirch, and we can link to that. And basically, it's kind of like a Nijmegen scenario. A lot of people actually train for this. They use this as training for Nijmegen. But it's like a 2-day event, and it's amazing because there's people from all over the world who join it, and there's different points within the march where you can sit down and have like a beer with somebody or food or chit-chat or what have you, or you can just march the whole thing and then just talk to people nonstop. And at the very end, every day, there's like this huge area by the, the finish line where it's kind of like a party, and it was amazing. And we got to do it in uniform, and we got to photograph people marching. And what was interesting to me was I actually like, to to march and hike and, ruck and things like that more than I like to run. So I just did the 20 kilometers. You can either do 20 kilometers or 40 kilometers each day. My commander did 40 both days. So we were like, oh, you're just like an overachiever. But the 20 was tough because it wasn't just the distance or the weight. It wasn't that. It was the elevation. Like, I've always wanted to climb Everest. Like, if I ever find like thousands of dollars, I want to try it. But it felt like I was climbing Everest. But it was awesome. It was an awesome experience. I can't talk about that march enough. And we got to meet, just all these people from different parts of the country. It was so much fun. Then we got to go to Luxembourg, which I had never been to before, and I thought Luxembourg was gorgeous, and people were very kind and friendly. And after that, we went to Normandy. And what was really, really amazing about Normandy is, we were there for the 72nd anniversary, but that alone was like mind-blowing, just to stand on different beaches and look at different points and just know what happened in history. And like the point, a Point de Hoc, where I knew like the Rangers climbed, the 90-foot elevation. Like I knew that from history, but to stand there and look down and realize, oh my God, they were like literally right in, they were here. And the climb looked like it would be pretty challenging, especially under those conditions. So it was very interesting to see that. And we saw like the different bunkers, like on Omaha Beach, where of course we know, obviously a lot of people lost their lives. And just standing there on the beach was just amazing because, it's a beach. So, the shore and the high tide and everything comes in. But just knowing what they landed, it was incredible experience.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Tracy was going to try and meet up with friends that we have through Project Vigil. Mm-hmm. If you guys have ever seen the young kid that actually dresses as a paratrooper and he goes to Normandy every year, they were planning on heading out there again this year, and Tracy was going to try and meet up with them, but they had said that there was like all kinds of protests and strikes going on in France, which I didn't even know about, but I guess it was like getting pretty out of hand and people couldn't even get gas. And did you experience any of that over there? I didn't even know what was happening.
Well, we were in northern France, so we were in parts surrounding like the Normandy events. Like I didn't know this either, but there's like this huge like schedule of events, where people commemorate the anniversary. There's different memorials and parades and things like that. And we got to participate in a few of them, mostly because the German company that we have worked with before in the past, my unit has worked with in the past, invited us. So when we went to Normandy this past year for the 72nd anniversary, we were embedded with the German army. So we basically did what they did. It's like if they were sightseeing, we sightseed. If they were jumping, we were jumping, or what have you. Like we follow them around. So my perspective was slightly different, I think, than most others, for the anniversary that, there, we were there with the Germans. So it was amazing. I have to say, being, a U.S. soldier in uniform, walking the streets in northern France with German soldiers in uniform by my side was amazing because, it made me realize that, times have changed. Of course, there was a terrible history, that happened on that country. And that could be why some places when we walked to get coffee or what have you, I felt like we had some really ugly looks. But I don't know. I think that could happen anywhere.
Especially France, because that's just the French.
Unfortunately, I think some stereotypes are true. But I didn't meet a lot of friendly people in France. But the country, of course, is beautiful. And the food's amazing. And coffee's incredible.
Yeah.
I did find out, actually, a little bit of trivia. I didn't know this. I found out that when we were in war before, as a country, we didn't want to give our Coke, to Germans.
Right.
Because, we were, not very happy with them and vice versa.
To say the least.
Exactly. So I found out that they actually, they came up with and made Fanta to kind of like substitute the fact that they couldn't get Coca-Cola. I had no idea. So I thought it was amazing. And ironically, I consumed more Fanta than I probably should. Like, but anyway, it's just amazing. Because, their sugar's different, right? Like they actually use real sugar. So like their chocolates and their juices and their Cokes and things like that, like taste different. And their Fanta was amazing. Anyway, a little bit of trivia I didn't know that about Fanta. The other thing, oh my God, that we got to do was I got to see Patton's grave. And I got to meet Helen Patton, which was amazing. It was amazing for me. Just all the history was incredible.
I feel like I'm just rubbing my face in shit right now. That's what's
I
happening.
so wish you were there. I have to say, though, everywhere that we went and there was like a sign-in book, I signed my husband's name.
So it's like I've been there, but I've never been there.
You were with me in spirit.
In spirit.
In my heart. Speaking of my heart, I was able to re-enlist, and in conversation, with my commander and one of the NCOs that was with us, we had talked about, if possible, because, we had a U.S. flag, actually my commander's flag with us. I was like, if possible, I would like to do my swearing ceremony. I haven't done it yet, for various reasons. And I mentioned it to one of the German soldiers there, and was blown away because we did a little bit of sightseeing with them, right, as I mentioned before, and one of the places, and we ended up with Iron Mike. And of course, I was like taking photos, right, and of them. And my commander was like, okay, we're gonna do it right now. And I was like, what? We're gonna do it right now? Where's the flag? What flag? What are you talking about? And I was blown away. My swearing ceremony was right at Iron Mike, and the German soldier that I had asked, if we could do it, if we could plan it with his schedule, made it happen. And he held the flag for me, and it was amazing. I got to swear in at Iron Mike. Of course, the commander had to repeat lines a couple times because I was a little overwhelmed, and afterwards, they put me in the front of their formation, and, they screamed Glukab 3 times. And I was like a little teary-eyed, and they gave me a book that they had all signed, and it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Didn't it end up as an article somewhere, or just a photo, or?
Yeah, that was even crazier. So, I'm a photographer, right? So I'm used to being behind the camera, and I always cringe when someone takes a photo of me because, it's not about me. It's like how I see it. And what was crazy was like later that afternoon or so, with the time difference, we were all struggling for the internet in northern France for some reason. Like everywhere we went, we're like, is there internet, Wi-Fi? No. So we were like, France, right? Darn France. Anyway, so at one point we all went somewhere and we had the internet and we clicked on and we were like, oh my God, like my photo that Sergeant Villafane took of me ended up being like a featured photo on the Army's main website. And it blew me away. I never in a million years would think that I would be in a photo. I, of course, have been lucky and I've had my photos of other people there, but never me. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, when you get to go frolic through the fields of Germany with unlimited per diem and, basically take a vacation and re-enlist in front of Iron Mike, it's... not a lot of us get the opportunity to do something like that. So,
but you were there in spirit.
In spirit.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I don't mean to ramble on about it, but it touched my heart quite a bit. And I'm not gonna lie, my eyes were a little watery here and there. It's pretty amazing. Speaking of amazing, my favorite SMA has made a decision that has me incredibly happy, and my husband, not so much.
Yeah, so I'm sure all of you have seen the post recently. They've been actually posting pictures, and apparently the debate was over before I even realized it had started. At this point, they were just trying to decide if it was a camo out or in kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can officially roll up your sleeves as if you're on KP duty. Kitchen police. That's what we've become, a kitchen police force.
Well, see, I joined the Army in 2009, so I've never heard of KP, and I've never rolled up my sleeve, so I'm crazy excited because, everybody should see this.
They can't see anything right now.
I'm flexing right now.
Yeah, I don't get the whole fascination behind it, aside from it being some hip thing that, that's all it is to me. Just people appealing to something cool people can do. And of course now it's all popular with everybody with their tattoo sleeves and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder what the policy is going to be with that. Like if you have a complete sleeve on your arm.
Well, from what I've read, because, I have like a tattoo on my forearm and on my tricep. From what I've read, your tattoos are okay as long as they're not on the hand. Like the rules that they had before still apply. So your sleeves are going to be out, your tattoo sleeves. But I know a lot of soldiers, who've been in the Army longer than myself, have voiced their concerns that they don't think it's a good idea. But mostly they don't think it's a good idea, from what I understand, because of heat, because it's not going to help you with, heat.
Yeah. Anybody who Anybody who's ever had to wear their sleeves up, like I did for KP duty, knows that it's like wearing a tourniquet on your arm because it's your entire sleeve just bundled up, you know. And this isn't like a dress shirt, you know, where you can unbutton and loosen it and roll. You know, it's tight Army uniform, so it's I don't know. I don't get the whole appeal to it. I honestly don't think a lot of commands are going to allow it to happen because in the Army, unlike other services, we actually get our elbows dirty and scratched up. So
yeah, they did say that field conditions, you know, wouldn't apply. But I mean, again, you know, everything is always up to the commander. So I don't know ultimately what's going to happen. You know, I guess it's probably just going to depend on MOSs, right? I mean, if you're inside at a desk, mostly you're probably going to be able to roll up your sleeves, I would imagine. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of changes, it's officially been made effective that transgender troops can now serve in the military. Transgender troops will no longer be considered medically unfit. I never realized they were medically unfit for military service. They may begin an official process to change gender in the military personnel management system. I'm okay with anybody serving that wants to serve. You know, I think everybody should have the opportunity if it's something they want to do. But I do not think that it's okay for the military to be paying for them to make their transition. I just don't feel like that's all right.
Well, I know you know I had an instructor, BSP instructor, when I was at DIVFOS who was in the Air Force, and it was an amazing instructor and just a great all-around guy and very funny, and everybody enjoyed his company and learned a lot from him. He ultimately took his life because he had to get out of the Air Force not too long ago. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, God. I mean, I'm happy that it's changed because, you know, from my personal experience, he was an amazing instructor, and he just kind of missed this policy, unfortunately. But I'd have to agree with you. I feel like, kind of like myself. I mean, you know, I'm getting older. I always talked about if I was older and I could afford it, I would get like a facelift and things like that. But I don't think the Army should have to pay for that. Like, I think it's one of those, I don't want to say it's a gray area, but I think it's one of those special areas where I'm with you. If you want to serve our country, I definitely think you should be allowed to. And I don't think you should be discriminated against for like your skin color or your age or your, you know, sexual preference or things like that. But I agree.
Yeah, and I think it'd be different if we were talking about someone who had already transitioned and we were talking about like maintenance drugs or something. I mean, that I would be okay with, but paying for the operation as a whole, and it's the same that, you know, they've been doing breast augmentations in the military for quite a while now, which that I don't get either. You know, unless it's for like some serious medical reason, like a reduction or I get it, but I don't understand why people qualify for this type of essentially cosmetic surgery when we can't even properly take care of soldiers who have legitimate issues and injuries and illnesses.
Then there's like PTSD. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, of course we can't even the Army and the VA and all these guys, they're probably causing more harm than anything with all their PowerPoint presentations and the constant barrage of information that appears to be useless in most cases. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I think that there are some effective things that they're doing that's helping us try to address the issues, but still we should be more focused on that than we should be on a cosmetic surgery because of someone's gender preference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there was just a story in the news yet again about suicide hotlines that are putting people on hold and things like that, and it just drives me crazy. I really feel like we need to put more time and energy in fixing things like that.
Yeah, actually, there was a guy, you mentioning that, there was a guy that, I think he was like a quadruple amputee, and he ended up killing himself after he called the hotline, the suicide crisis hotline. They literally hung up on him and after telling him to calm down and call back.
Yeah.
After he wasn't, after he had calmed down. So that's the level of service that soldiers are receiving right now.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like this is something we should even be talking about, providing these types of services to people. Allowing them to serve, absolutely. But talking about paying for all the medical needs, it's not even something we should be discussing.
No, I agree. I feel like we should. I think it's appalling of how many soldiers we haven't helped that have come back, and I agree. We should definitely find a way to fix it.
Yeah. Well, looking more outside the military and more towards veterans, your favorite presidential candidate.
I know. I do my best to never talk about politics or religion as much as I can, especially on social media, because, you know, my views are often not the majority views. But there are some things about Donald Trump that I really like. I'm not going to say that he's like the perfect candidate, but he has some ideas that I really like. And I kind of like that he's a bit of an outsider. I kind of think that might be great for us. Anyway, so this one thing that we saw in the news that we wanted to mention, you know, pertains to veterans. And he has this huge veteran following. And I'm not completely sure why exactly, except for maybe things like this.
It's probably because he's not Hillary Clinton.
Well, yeah.
That's probably why. Anyway, somebody made mention to him that, you know, of course, we all know there's issues with the TSA, like them being, you know, useless people for the most part.
Yeah.
Ineffective, I think, is a huge understatement. But even just the quality of the people that are in the organization is what's constantly being addressed. And so it was made mention to Donald Trump that we should have veterans as TSA agents. And he made some sort of bland comment about we're looking at a lot of things or whatever. It's amazing. It's really amazing. Mm-hmm. Really, really amazing. I don't know, whatever he said. But
I think it's good because I think there are a lot of veterans who don't have a job, and I think there's like reports of like an entire generation that don't have jobs. So I think it's good that we're looking at ways to give them jobs, but I don't think that you think that that's the point, right?
Well, I don't know. I think that they were implying that veterans would be much better trained and suited for the job, which I think could be true. It's not that I think that you know, they wouldn't do a good job in those types of positions, but I don't know. I think that the type of training that we receive, you know, is meant to take place in a foreign country on a battlefield somewhere. It's not meant to be implemented here at home. I think that whenever we go into a job, like, you know, a lot of guys get out and girls get out and they become cops, you know, and there's a bit of a transition for them to go from that military mentality to being part of a police force here at home. And the ones that don't successfully make that transition, those are the ones that you hear about, the shithead cops out there that are doing bad things, you know, which is a minority. But I think it's possible that if we just start throwing veterans at this type of thing and we're not looking at how we're transitioning them from the military mentality to the Homeland Security mentality, then I think it could be an issue, you know. Some people even over there kind of lose their state of being, you know, who they were, and they start acting in a way that they wouldn't normally act, you know, just given that little bit of authority and without any oversight, you know, carrying that rifle. Some people just take on a totally different persona. So we'd have to, I think that there would be a minority that would be an issue, but I think it'd be something to consider.
Well, when you said about the authority, that movie, we saw a movie recently, and I didn't even know that this experiment even happened. What was it called? The Stanford prison experiment? Is that what it was called?
Well, it happened, yeah, like in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah, we just recently saw this movie, and it just blew me away. I didn't even realize that this happened, and I think it's important to talk about, you know, if you didn't know that happened or to look it up, is because just the way human nature is, it just blows me away.
Well, I didn't get to see the movie, but I've seen some of the footage of the actual experiment, and I've read some papers on it. But it does say a lot about what type of, when people are put in certain roles, what type of mentality they can start to acquire. And what the thing that's worrisome about that with veterans is that, you know, veterans are trained to, they know how to be more aggressive and violent, and maybe not so much violent. I don't think they'll be violent, but they definitely know how to be more aggressive. And I think that it's very possible that the wrong person put in that type of position, we could be seeing similar issues. I mean, most of the people that work at the TSA now, they're like the kind of people that were either bullies in school and just found some place where they can continue to be that way, or were bullied in school and now they're, getting back at people. That's kind of the feeling I get every time I go through airport security.
I feel that way with customs as well. I mean,
well, it's the same people. I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm lucky. I travel a lot, and I've definitely noticed that. Especially like the way that we get to travel with DTS and everything is you get to be like pre-approved, and sometimes people are very hostile. Even though I have it like on my little ticket, my boarding pass where it says pre-check. Some people are still like nasty. Unnecessarily is what you're talking about. It's amazing
to me, and the whole TSA thing is turning the entire airport into the DMV experience. Like even the airlines are starting to take on that persona, just the shithead mentality, where they just treat people like crap now. And I feel like it's the same thing we're seeing in healthcare, and it's just pissing me off that the customer service just doesn't exist anymore.
It really doesn't
in these
anywhere.
Places.
I don't think it does anywhere anymore. I mean, just recently, I wasn't feeling well after my trip to Germany, and we went to like an urgent care place, because of course I wasn't life threatening. I just felt like I needed some antibiotics, and the service I got was terrible, and they like misdiagnosed me and gave me like the wrong antibiotics, and I ended up being sicker, and I ended up complaining to the clinic, and they hung up on me. I was like blown away, I don't know. I think unfortunately customer service is just not what it used to be anywhere.
Well, but I think that anywhere you go where like government agencies are getting involved, it's just getting worse. I mean, it's just deadening all sympathy, empathy, any type of human connection. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, so speaking of movies, the other movie that I saw yesterday that I really liked was Eye in the Sky. And just the drones were fascinating. They had like a little hummingbird and a beetle, and it made me wonder what's true and what's not true. But I recommend that movie if no one has seen that either.
Actually, it was really the whole plot of the... Tracy sat there like in complete anxiety the entire time. If you could have created teams in this movie, it would have been the terrorist, the British and Americans, and then the drone team. Tracy was just on the drone team. Like, fire the missile already.
The whole movie, I was like, oh, just shoot them, kill them already. I was so...
And it was a pretty interesting movie in that, and it's something that a lot of you may have experienced at some point, where there's sort of this escalation because of the ROE, the rules of engagement. You have to go through a process of escalation, basically getting permission to engage an enemy depending on where they are, like if they're in a mosque or something. Mm-hmm. And this movie essentially was centered around that. And of course, it was a little ridiculous, but I mean, I don't know.
It was dramatized because it was a movie somewhat, I would assume.
But we don't really see what happens on that level, so it could actually be that way. When it's nothing but politicians involved, and someone has to make a decision to fire this missile and possibly kill innocent people in the process, no one wants to be politically responsible for saying I'm the one that gave the go-ahead.
Yeah.
So it was just like this juggle go. I mean, it was very interesting to watch. I actually enjoyed the movie while Tracy was just pissed off the entire time.
I was pissed because they wouldn't fire. I was like, fire, fire, fire. And then it made me...
Well, you don't have to run for election next year. So.
And then afterwards, I was like, maybe I should never be in that seat. Maybe I should never be the drone pilot because I would have fired long ago.
The drone pilot had more of a conscience than Tracy did. So... Anyways, it was a really interesting movie if you guys want to check it out.
I highly recommend that too. And of course, it made me think about Spock, of course, because, I'm the Trekkie fan that we all know, original Star Trek, where, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Love that movie.
Well,
it's been good to have me back.
If I'm ever found dead, I just want you guys to really look at the situation, because we do have life insurance policies, and Tracy may be looking at the needs of the many being her and the two dogs over the need of the one. I just want everybody to keep that in mind. So if you could, just watch my back.
You're 6.
Yes.
So silly.
So thank you guys for sticking around, waiting for another episode. We do have a couple of things lined up coming up pretty soon in the future. A couple of people have reached out to us about some interviews, which we're looking forward to doing. And we also have possibly a sponsor for the podcast.
How cool is that? That's so awesomely cool to me.
Yeah, we definitely want to.
Just like the rolled sleeves.
Oh, God. We definitely want to. Yeah, by the way, it's not any kind of protein flex shake or anything. It's a totally different, nerdy, kind of organization like us. So, but we definitely don't want to. It was never our intention to start stuffing a bunch of ads or anything in the podcast, but it would be awesome to have a sponsor. So, as soon as we get that sort of organized and worked out, we'll fill you guys in on it. And we definitely also don't want to have a sponsor of something we haven't tried out ourselves. So, we're going to be trying them out. So we'll let you know how that goes, and hopefully we'll have some good episodes coming up for you here in the future.
Yes, and I was able to obtain the publicist number from your friend Noah at Invictus. I met him and photographed him there, and I'm hoping that works out. And he's an incredibly busy guy because he's like a crazy big deal now. But
right, I can't just text him anymore. I gotta talk to his publicist.
Yeah, which is so awesome, awesome. Anyway, so good for him, and hopefully we get to work it out with his schedule because that would be awesome.
Yeah. So thank you guys again. Don't forget to visit the vetscafe.com, our website. You can from there you can click on our iTunes link and subscribe to the podcast. I'm Wes.
I'm Tracy.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Visit our website to join the conversation. That's vetscafe.com, vetscafe.com.